One of the Miami Hurricanes' most important offensive players just made his spring practice debut. Is he going to bring this passing attack to another level?
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I am Alex Dono, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC, and writer for Canes County at Rivals. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On this episode, guys, I have to really pat Josh Pate on the back from CBS and 24/7 Sports. Probably the most rational and maybe the best college football analyst out there. In his words, the truth on Mario Cristobal. I thought he had a great take on Miami's head coach. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about Miami's new safeties coach, Will Harris, discussing his personnel. And there's a lot to say about the offense today, guys. So Tuesday's practice, a very important group debut was made. This is a player coming off of injury from its previous stop, had been doing, the off to the side type of workouts, finally got to integrate with his teammates on Tuesday. And that's former LSU wide receiver, Miami's transfer receiver, CJ Daniels, finally practicing. And guys, I want to give you two reasons why CJ Daniels, and I'm not overselling this, one of the most important players on this offense. Is he the most important? It's not Carson Beck. You could argue some of Miami's offensive linemen, CC and Markel Bell, at the tackle spots, Mark Fleck. CJ Daniels is one of the most important players on this offense when it comes to his experience and when it comes to his leadership. This is the most experienced, battle-tested wide receiver Miami has by far. 6-year senior Daniels, over 2,400 career receiving yards and 21 career touchdowns. Now, I'm not saying, I'm not touting his experience as a shot to anyone else on the roster. I'm not. You guys know how I feel about JoJo Trader and Ray Joseph, who are having great springs, and Malachi Toney, the promise that I see there, Josh Moore. I'm not knocking any of Miami's other receivers, but if you look at the experience and the statistical gap between CJ Daniels and the rest of them, you understand why it's so important to have a veteran in that wide receiver room. I mentioned his 2,400 plus yards, 2,430, closing in on 2,500 career receiving yards, the 21 touchdowns. The next two receivers statistically on Miami career numbers are Ray Joseph, heading into his third year, played sparingly first 2 years. He's got 110 career receiving yards over 2 seasons. And JoJo Trader, 91 yards and a touchdown last year. That's excluding tight ends, of course. We're just talking receivers. Like Miami's got Alex Bauman as an experienced tight end who came in. Elijah Lofton had, I think, 150 receiving yards and a touchdown last year. But there is a huge gap statistically and experienced-wise from CJ Daniels to the rest of that room. And that's not to knock the rest of that receivers room, but I love Daniels being there, not only for what he's going to provide on the field, but what he can provide helping these young guys learn and develop. And that heads into the second part of this, folks. The second factor is the leadership that comes with a guy who's not only a 6-year senior, but someone who is already taking teammates under his wing. Here's what receivers coach Kevin Beard said about Daniels yesterday. Beard spoke to the media on Tuesday. Quote on Daniels, he's done a really good job with his leadership. He's the oldest guy in the room. They lean on him from that perspective. He's a worker. You don't have to tell him to catch balls on the jugs machine. He's the one initiating it. He knows he has a lot of young guys behind him, so he's trying to show them the way. When I was here, when Beard played at Miami back in the day, that was the process. He said the freshmen come in and the older guys show them the way. Older guys leave, you take it over. That's what I respect from his approach, Kevin Beard said. And, a couple Saturdays ago, I had a chance to, with some other members of the media, talk with Nye Carr, one of those young receivers that Daniels is taking under his wing. And Carr mentioned to us that the receivers, they all meet with CJ Daniels before they all go in to meet with Kevin Beard. That's leadership. And again, proven track record with his statistics. I know a lot of that was at Liberty. He had an okay year with LSU last year, 480 yards, but I think his workload and the amount of reps he takes at Miami will probably be more than what he had with the LSU Tigers last year. So I've got high expectations for CJ Daniels. And when I'm talking about the importance of this player, it's not just having his proven talent, it's also having the experience and the leadership that comes with that. So CJ Daniels making his group practice debut this week, that's significant. And of course, when we're talking important offensive players, when are guys going to make their full practice debuts? We're all waiting to see when we get that from Carson Beck. And again, Beck is out there. He's doing his thing. Hasn't been fully cleared to throw yet. So once he gets that green light, and we're hearing some buzz that could happen in the near future, maybe within the next week or two. Don't hold me to that. I don't want to oversell and underdeliver, but there is some buzz out there that Beck is getting close. You want to build that connection as well, Carson Beck and CJ Daniels, because that's going to be an important weapon. And I think, also, when I mentioned just the pure experience gap between Daniels and the rest of Miami's receiving core, that's one of the reasons why there's a lot of speculation. April 15th, when the transfer portal opens again, Miami could be in the market to add another receiver, someone with, similar experience level, third, fourth, fifth year guy. Daniels is a 6-year guy, but, someone who's a little bit longer in the tooth and has some proven production to throw into that room. Now, Kevin Beard, Miami's receivers coach, also spoke about his young receivers after talking about CJ Daniels' leadership, saying, "We're taking steps," he said. "We came out like hot jalapenos and everybody was excited, but it's day 10 now. It's hot out there. It's a lot more installs in. It's a lot of motions, a lot of shifts, and it's a lot of details. Things don't fall apart, and so we got a lot of work to do," he says. "You want to be excited about them, but at the same time, we got a lot of work." And that's been, the same message that Cristobal had a couple weeks ago about the young receivers, because trajectory is very positive. We talk about Josh Moore a lot. He had another contested catch in Tuesday's practice. That's a great sign. Malachi Toney and Dalen Upshaw, a couple true freshman receivers, have been practicing well. In fact, I really feel like how well Malachi Toney has practiced has helped to bring out the best in Ray Joseph. I think out of the whole receiving core, again, the media doesn't get to watch the entire practice, so context matters here. But, based on what we've been able to observe and what I've been able to gather from talking to some other people, seems like, so far JoJo Trader and Ray Joseph have probably been overall the most consistent in that receiving room. And now that CJ Daniels is practicing, we'll see how he fully stacks up against the rest of that group as well. So it's good that he's there, able to mentor those guys. A couple of other notes from the Tuesday practice: more good reps from Hayden Lowe. Another freshman that we're hyping up. But Lowe seems like the real deal. The first year edge rusher, 5-star recruit, 250 plus pounds. He's really, really tough, and he's getting the better of some of the offensive linemen he's going up against. A couple of the O linemen that did stand out this week, positive ways, are Ryan Rodriguez and Inez Cooper. Coop, of course, is going to be drafted next year. I have little doubt to that. One of the better guards in the country. And Ryan Rodriguez is trying to get that full-time opportunity, right? You remember, this is someone who actually earned the starting job week 1 against Florida, lost that job due to injury, which he's finally recovered from. And, the guy he's primarily competing with for that starting left guard job is now coming off an injury and back practicing in Matthew McCoy. So that battle is going to be fun. And Ryan Rodriguez is doing very well. Also, I should mention Markel Bell has been doing well all throughout spring. I mean, he got his on-the-job training last year, Miami's new starting left tackle, all the playing time that he had replacing Jalen Rivers when Rivers was injured. And even when Rivers came back, Markel got a lot of reps, which I thought was really smart from Cristobal and Mirabal to continue grooming him to be the starting left tackle this year. And Bell seems to be more polished with his technique. Like, he's been working really, really hard to establish that. But I want to talk about the defensive backs when we come back, as Will Harris had some words about his personnel. Plus, we're going to be answering questions on this episode of Locked On Canes, including, now that it looks like we're not getting it this year, The NCAA denied it this year, but it looks as though in the future, we may have the opportunity to have joint spring games, right? I mean, all the talk has been about Syracuse wanting to play Colorado for a spring game. If that door gets open next year, Miami may have the opportunity next year, the year after, whatever, to have joint practices and a joint spring game against another opponent. Who would you like to see Miami go up against? We have so much coming up, my friends. You want to keep it locked right here on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need, delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with your order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Thank you for making Locked On Canes your first listen today. For your next listen, check out Locked On ACC. Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack and I will be back with a new episode coming up tonight, talking about Duke's run into the Final Four. We'll probably talk about some of this spring game stuff because I think there's a lot of possibilities out there. Locked On ACC is available free wherever you get your podcasts. And like this show, it's available free as well on YouTube. So the defensive backfield, of course, has been a huge topic for the Hurricanes with all the new faces back there, right? Brantley, Poyser, Xavier Lucas, Carnley, Ethan O'Connor, 5 new transfer defensive backs. Miami's got 4 true freshmen in the class. 2 of them are practiced now and enrolled early. The other 2 are going to be practicing by fall camp coming up later on this summer. So it's been a transformation. And it's not only a personnel transformation, it's a coaching transformation. I mean, a new defensive coordinator overseeing that entire side of the football with Corey Heatherman, 2 new defensive backs coaches with Will Harris coming from Florida, who's primarily focusing on the safeties, and Zach Etheridge coming over from Houston, primarily focusing on the cornerbacks. Now, Harris pointed out, Will Harris, that it's really not it's not such a structured thing for them because both of those guys, Etheridge and Harris, are capable of coaching corners and safeties. So, they seem to have already found a good shorthand and a good chemistry with the way they split up the coaching duties, and they both spend time with both units. So it's not really delineated where it's like Harris only sticks with the safeties and Etheridge only sticks with the corners. There's a little bit more collaboration there, which I appreciate. And the fact that it sounds like these 2 gentlemen are already working together pretty well, I will take that. But here's Will Harris's take on some of his safeties and nickels. On Zachariah Poyser, who's been practicing very, very well, always seems to be in good positions. There's been a few dropped interceptions, but there's you guys are defensive backs and not receivers for a reason. But I want to see Zachariah Poyser become a big time interception grabber this year. So put some stickum on those gloves or something. But he's been practicing very well. Of Poyser, Will Harris says we're moving him around, strong safety and free safety. He's a smart young man. He's doing a great job. Markeith Williams is another one in that safety room who has been in Miami's program for a long time, battling for opportunities. Will Harris says he has a bright future. He's got to understand both safety positions in the new defense. He talked about Zaquan Patterson. Now, Zaquan recently returned to practice off of injury. I think, in fact, kind of like CJ Daniels, I think Tuesday was his first full practice with the group. He says just the biggest thing on Patterson is just learning and growing. He has a lot of growth. One thing for sure is just everybody all being on the same page. Tuesday was his first day back, so we'll watch the tape and go from there, he says. Talked talking about Charles Brantley and Damari Brown. On Charles Brantley, Will Harris says he has a lot of experience, has played in this defense, he says. It's just about continuing to grow. He has to gain some weight, but he's doing a great job. So I think the way it's been sort of appearing to us is it's going to be a competition, we think, between Charles Brantley and Damari Brown to be the starting nickel this year. And big emphasis from Will Harris, big emphasis from Zach Etheridge as well. The other defensive backs coach has been communication. They are touting communication as the most important thing for that defensive secondary to improve. And it's obviously a lot of different guys there than last year, although notables like O.J. Frederick or back from last season's team and then Damari Brown, but there's a lot of new faces there. But I think we can all agree defensive backfield communication last year was poor, unacceptable. So that's something Coach Harris is really emphasizing, and I'm sure he studied the tape of Miami last year, so he emphasizes these guys need to communicate and be on the same page. So that's definitely something when we all get to watch Miami's spring game on April 12th, that's, I'm sure, something we're going to be looking for to see how that unit works together and how they communicate. All right, let's answer some questions here from the Locked On Canes insiders. And by the way, if you want to become a Locked On Canes insider, guys, you can unlock exclusive access, text messages directly from my phone to yours, breaking news, recruiting scoops, show updates. Click the link in the show description below. Become a Locked On Canes insider. You can try it free for 14 days. And then if you like it, you can opt in for $4.99 a month. Give you a lot of added value on there on the Locked On Canes insiders chat. We get a question from the 786. With us adding a wide receiver being a foregone conclusion in the spring, do you prefer a boundary guy or a slot type? You know, if you look at the evidence, going back to the previous transfer portal in the winter, Miami took a big shot at Zachariah Branch, who's a slot guy. So you know, if you follow the evidence, they were recently interested in another slot. Personally, I think Miami has more guys with that body type. And I am personally more interested in another boundary guy because, you know, and also, you know, to be fair, Ray Joseph, I think, has elevated his game so far in this spring. Malachi Toney, who can play the slot, is someone who's performing well so far in practice. Dalen Upshaw, obviously, the last two of these guys are really, really young. But maybe I feel more of an evolving need now for a boundary guy than a slot guy. But you can tell me if I'm wrong. And obviously, there is recent evidence of Miami going after a slot receiver in the portal that they didn't ultimately land. He chose Georgia over Miami. But that's my take on it. I like this question from Andrew in Pennsylvania. What do you think the fan perspective is on Ray Joseph? I personally didn't seem to have a strong opinion on him, as we haven't seen much from him yet. But after his interview the other day, I think the dude is a class act, Andrew says. Staying committed to a program and waiting your turn is admirable in the days of unlimited transfer and NIL opportunities. I hope this dude has a breakout season. Andrew, I co-sign on that 1,000%. You know, I've always liked Ray. I feel like, you know, all fans really knew about him was, you know, hasn't played a whole lot, has been, you know, behind Xavier Restrepo, and, you know, Ray hasn't gotten too many opportunities to speak to the media over the last couple of years. So I don't really think people have heard a lot from Ray. But I'm with you, Andrew. I thought that interview that he did a couple weeks back, I thought it was eye-opening. It really gave us a window into his love for Miami and his loyalty to the program and to how much he's willing to work to earn his opportunity, because this is the opportunity this year. Because listen, the last couple years, you're behind 1,000-yard plus, you know, one of the best receivers Miami has ever had statistically in Xavier Restrepo. Like, it's tough. It's tough to surpass that dude. This year is Ray's opportunity. And, you know, hopefully we see some pop on special teams returns this year as well. But honestly, how do you root against Ray Joseph? Like, it's impossible. And he's quick. He's athletic. I think he's getting better on the practice field every single day. So, like, you want to talk about improving your stock with the fan base. If you haven't seen Ray's interview, it's you can find it on YouTube. I thought that he did a really good job explaining to Miami fans who he is, how hard he's working, and what he's all about. I'm all for it. We get this question from Jeff. I'm looking at our class of 2026, and 24/7 only has 4 out of our 7. They have 4 out of our 7 guys as 3 stars. He's asking. He says I couldn't care less about stars because I trust the coaches and talent evaluators. But who do you think has the best chance of earning their 4th star? I would like to see Darion Coleman get a 4th star. I know that they kind of hold his lack of size against him, but also he's now taller than his listing on the recruit. He's grown since he's in the 6'1" range now. They have him listed in the 5'11" range, and Darion Coleman has been dominating every camp this guy has been to. Like if you've watched Darion, all of the different Under Armours and 7-on-7s and rivals camps he's gone to. He's been an outstanding quarterback performer everywhere he's been in the camp circuit. So that's someone I'd like to see get the 4th star. Okay, here's the money question here from Tim. Spring games against other teams is becoming a big topic, and we might see it happen in the future. Who would you like to see Miami play against next spring? So Colorado and Syracuse this year, which would be happening in the next couple of weeks, they tried to organize a few days of joint practices and a joint spring game. The NCAA said, hell no, right? Citing, academic concerns and competitiveness and the recruiting advantages they would get. But I will say in the NCAA statement, as you know, the NCAA does what they do. They deny fun of any kind, right? So even in denying the Colorado-Syracuse spring game, it did sound like the NCAA wants to explore this as something they're going to open up to everybody in the future, right? That, Colorado and Syracuse tried to organize this last minute and other teams wouldn't have had a chance to get it organized. So it seems like the NCAA is open to letting teams do this in the future. So you think about who you'd like to see Miami play in a joint spring game, maybe as soon as next year. Okay. Now, I've had people suggest to me, hey, wouldn't it be fun, to go up against, Florida State in a spring game or even Notre Dame. So, okay, I'm going to say no to teams that Miami faces frequently in the regular season. You play Florida State every year, October or November. That's all I need. I don't need to have a joint spring thing with Florida State. That doesn't do anything for me. We see them every single season. I know Notre Dame is not an every year thing, but it's going to become a more common thing because the ACC's new scheduling format is going to have Miami, Florida State, and Clemson play Notre Dame on a rotating basis more often. So I don't need, and Miami plays Notre Dame this year, so I don't need Notre Dame in a spring game. I want to focus on teams that Miami doesn't see very often or even ever. Now, Colorado would be a perfect candidate. You talk about the brands like Colorado. They're trying to do the whole, swagger thing that Miami did back in the 80s. They haven't won the championships, of course, that Miami won back in those days, but there are some similarities. The big spotlight that comes with Coach Prime. If you do that game, TV televised spring game, Miami versus Colorado would dominate. Now, seems like Syracuse, for whatever reason, Fran Brown and Dion, I guess, are buddies. It seems like Syracuse already has dibs for next year on Colorado, but I'd love to face Colorado. I'll give you a few others I'd like to go against. Penn State, the old school Miami fans, that there's obviously history there. Miami versus the Nittany Lions would be a lot of fun. Miami versus Ohio State, someone suggested to me. I mean, hopefully after Jeremiah Smith has gone off somewhere, but Miami versus Ohio State would be a lot of fun. I'm also thinking about Miami versus USC, East versus West, 2 storied programs of private universities. I think that would be a lot of fun. What about Miami versus Wisconsin? You got this recent bad blood, right? The Luke Fickell, Xavier Lucas blood feud. You may not want to play that game because Mario and Fickell might fight. I don't know what would happen there, but I'm just thinking out loud here. I think some of those matches would be a lot of fun. Or what about Miami versus Oregon? Right? All the history there. I mean, Mario knows his way around Eugene. He knows where to, do they have Cafecito anywhere? If they have Cafecito anywhere in Eugene, I know Mario knows exactly. If there's one Cuban bakery there, one Ventanita in Eugene, I know Mario knows where to find that. Or maybe Oregon comes down here and they can have all the Cafecito they want. But those are some of the matchups I would like to see if Miami can organize spring games. Teams Miami never faces or rarely faces, fun matchups, good TV draws. That's what I'm looking at. Speaking of Mario Cristobal, Josh Pate from CBS and 24/7 Sports offered for those not of the Miami persuasion, a very unpopular yet true take on Miami's head coach. You want to keep it locked right here on this brand new Locked On Canes. Budgeting has been a big emphasis for me and for a lot of us recently. Do you ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. Guys, when I started using Monarch, I realized how much I was spending on things like food delivery, subscription services for all these different TV channels and streaming. Now I budget smarter and I save more. And managing money with your partner gets smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for half off your first year.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
So I'm watching this recent clip of Josh Pate, 24/7 Sports, about Mario Cristobal. He called it the truth about Mario Cristobal. And he knew, like he said it, the comment section is going to devolve. Like he knew he was going to get shredded in the comments for saying nice things about Mario Cristobal, because for some reason, a lot of college football fans have these certain narratives about Mario that they will never let go. But here's what Pate had to say. And folks, I see no lies here. Josh Pate says Mario Cristobal, everywhere he's been, has elevated, especially as a head coach. So he gets really good players and he elevates any program he goes to. Does anyone disagree with that? Because that's where I stop, Josh Pate says. That's how I describe Mario Cristobal. Pate noted that a lot of the shots that people are going to take, and they were certainly taking in his comment section when he says nice things about Cristobal, is the quote unquote, he hasn't won anything. Mario hasn't won anything. And then Pate pointed out something. And when he first gave out this stat, I'm thinking, is that really true? And yeah, verified. There are only 3 active head coaches in college football who have won national championships. Exactly 3. You're talking about Dabo Swinney. You're talking about Kirby Smart and Ryan Day, who just got one at Ohio State. 3. And so this idea that, Mario Cristobal, this guy hasn't won anything because he hasn't won a national championship. You can count on 3 fingers the amount of active head coaches who have won national titles. And part of the, and I'll dive into why I think Mario is so polarizing. But something that does annoy me is the benefit of the doubt that certain other coaches get that Mario doesn't, right? Dan Lanning, who replaced Mario at Oregon, has become an absolute media darling. So far, hasn't won anything more at Oregon than Mario did there. Lane Kiffin. I think Lane Kiffin is so good with the media that he's become a darling wherever he's been. Lane Kiffin is Teflon. What has he won? Another one, Lincoln Riley. I think Lincoln Riley has lost a little bit of his mystique recently, but still has some of that. Historically gets more praise than the actual results he's produced on the field. So why does Mario Cristobal get held to a different standard than some of these others who are media darlings for reasons that don't really equate to what Mario has done and doesn't get the benefit of the doubt for? I think a lot of it with Mario, a lot of it had to do with him leaving Oregon, and he chose to leave Oregon. Phil Knight wanted to keep him there. And that happened despite what a great situation he seemed to be in there in Eugene, all of the resources, all of the facilities, all the blank checks from Nike, but he chose to leave to go to his alma mater. That put a target on his back. So I don't remember Cristobal being as scrutinized in Oregon as he is here in Miami. There's also the Miami factor, of course. Miami, they love to hate us, right? And, with Miami, it's something that kind of coincided with Cristobal's arrival here. You remember, Miami became one of the first really high-profile NIL schools because of all the press that John Ruiz got. Remember all that stuff? So, the perception became, even though other schools were spending plenty of money, a lot of them spending more money than Miami in NIL, but the perception became, look at that multi-million-dollar roster that Miami is building, and their coach can't win with it, right? As if Miami was the only big spender. Miami just, and Ruiz is no longer, anywhere near the front man for Miami NIL. It's Canes Connection Collective, and we do it differently now. So it's no longer the Ruiz show. But back then, Miami, they were the ones with a guy that was tweeting nonstop and going on all these TV interviews, so high profile. So I think a lot of it boils down to the Mario scrutiny. It boils down to people thinking that Mario Cristobal should win more with the talent that he collects. So it's kind of a weird instance of being scrutinized for your own success on the recruiting trail. Look at how good your recruiting classes are. How come you're not winning national titles? And I'm also not going to ignore. So a lot of the Mario scrutiny, and listen, a lot of coaches out there have made, errors and time management and stuff. I know that that's been something Mario, it's going to take him a long time to shake that from his reputation. The knee that wasn't taken against Georgia Tech a couple years ago, that was one of the more viral clips of the 2023 football season. And folks are just, unfortunately not willing to move past that, as if that's the only time anyone has, made a coaching error of that sort. And so, but going back to Pate's original point, I think what matters most is Mario Cristobal has elevated every program he's been to. And if you don't think he's elevating the talent, the situation, and elevating the opportunity that Miami now has to compete for that elusive ACC championship and compete for that college football playoff berth that we're all craving, if you don't think Mario has put this program in a better position to do all of those things, you're either blind by your bias or you're not paying attention. That'll do it for this episode. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch. And by the way, thank you guys so much for helping us reach 20,000 YouTube subscribers. We hit that milestone yesterday. I'm so proud and I'm so humbled by it. I still have a hard time believing that anyone other than my mom watches this every single day. So to all the everydayers, I'm humbled by the fact that you guys come to us, and I don't take it for granted. So thank you so much for helping us reach that milestone. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your pods, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow. We'll have the recruiting overlord, Brian Smith, with us tomorrow right here on Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.